Welcome to another Anchor Point podcast with me, Dr. Ali Norman. I'm joined today by a regular on our podcast, Trevor Greenaway. He's the father of somebody with a brain injury. Welcome, Trevor, and thank you for joining me again. For those listeners that haven't heard any of the other podcasts that you've done for us, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what happened to your son and your family, please?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Ali. It's a privilege to be back talking to you again. My name's Trevor Greenaway. I'm the dad of a young man who unfortunately had a very bad car accident back in 2018, May of 2018, which led to him being in the hospital environment for 8 months through intensive care and then the rehab centre in Oxford. And we're now nearly 6 years on. You know, we're in May now, so just a couple of weeks from now, it will be the 6th anniversary of that day. And obviously our lives as a family and my son's life has changed very dramatically.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. So thanks, Trevor, for the introduction. So this week we're marking Brain Injury Awareness Week, and each year they pick a different theme for that. And this particular year, the theme is A Life Rewritten. Now, when these themes are picked, they tend to be targeted around the person with the brain injury. And we certainly know that individuals with a brain injury's lives are massively rewritten after brain injury. But clearly here at Anchor Point, what we're interested in is about that raising awareness of the impact that brain injury has on family members as well, whose lives are also often rewritten. So, Trevor, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your own story. So, first of all, thinking about those early weeks after Harvey's accident, how did life change for you and for the rest of your family?
Yeah, I think, you know, and I made some notes, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to refer to some of those. But so Harvey came out of the hospital setting 8 months after, really, and we got him home just before Christmas. So it was December the 18th. And obviously it was just a relief. It was joyous. It was fabulous to have him back. You know, that was the key. I think that what I sort of wrote here is that it was almost like the adrenaline stopped and the reality kicked in. So, you know, while we were in the hospital environment, we were driving backwards and forwards to Oxford, and you just go, you know, and as a family, I have 2 other sons and my wife, obviously. And, you know, we were all living in that hospital environment for a very long time. And then suddenly we're home. And I think, you know, it was scary because it was the first time where I realized that, you know, when you look around, there was nobody there to really assist us and help us, let alone prepare us for what we were about to embark on. And, you know, I think back to when our children were born. You know, we had a midwife that came round and spent time with us and spent time with my wife to prepare us for what was about to happen. Yeah, you know, we left the hospital setting after 8 months, and the hospital were fantastic, and so were the rehab centre. But the post-hospital experience was non-existent. There was nobody, and now we're on our own with somebody who is extremely unwell. So I think, you know, what some of the things that we really perhaps struggled with at the start, I mean, it was many things, but it was the realization, I think, for my wife and I, that of the enormity of this situation now. We knew that anyway, but I think when you're at home on your own and you're dealing with it day in, day out, you realize that this is now very much going to change our lives, potentially forever. And, you know, the realization that certainly in the short term, we are going to be full-time carers. And I know we've talked about that in the past. You know, nobody asked me if I accept to be the full-time carer, let alone help me understand what that meant. There's just an expectation. I think it was the realization also for me that the business I'd spent 20 years building was pretty much going to fall apart now if I did the right thing and spent the time with my son, because I couldn't travel anymore. So the whole thing was quite scary, I think, for my family, for you know, particularly my sons. I think the realization that their brother had changed, certainly in those very early days, there was huge anger from Harvey, from the boy that was affected, towards other family members. I remember going out for a Christmas meal thinking that this was going to be a lovely idea. And it was pretty horrendous. The anger and the aggression in that Christmas setting was awful. And it was a big wake up call for us as a family. And, what we did was we used coping mechanisms. So when Harvey had outbursts or behaved in such a way that really made no sense, we'd been taught to differentiate Harvey as was and to talk about his injury as something. And we called it Eric. So he called it Eric. So there was a way that we could all come to terms with this wasn't their brother or it wasn't our son. This was Eric. And we got to work with this now and not judge or get frustrated with Eric. With Harvey. We've got to recognize this is Eric. So I guess the overriding feeling that I think we all had as a family was the enormity of what this means. And I think, again, not knowing how long we're going to be in this situation. I think that's probably some of the key things. I think the other thing I would say, Ali, that looking back, I wish I'd realized earlier was we were all, each of us, suffering with PTSD in one form or another.
Of course.
And I think, I can only really talk about myself, but I was at that point seeking quite a lot of psychological help to help me come to terms with what had happened and control my anger as to why this had happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's when you're in that hospital environment, it's truly terrifying, but it's somewhat closeted, isn't it, from reality? The impact, the actual reality of what you're going to have to face doesn't hit you until the person's home and you start to really see what that's going to mean for your life day to day. Really difficult.
Yeah, very, very much. And I think the other thing is, I think for Harvey himself, he'd been, I guess, for want of a better word, the center of attention for that whole period. We all went in, and every time we went in, we had something for him, whatever that might be. And he was now having to find his position back in a house, in a home. He was no longer, there was lots going on, and I think that was very, very hard for him and very hard for us to understand why he didn't fit straight back into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're obviously nearly 6 years down the line. What have been the biggest changes, would you say, for yourself, but also for the rest of your family?
Yeah, I think, 6 years on, Ali, I think, we are, it's hard to imagine I'm saying this, but, we are the luckiest people on the planet because, Harvey is very highly functioning. He cannot work. He still struggles a lot with fatigue. But most of the anger and that side of things has settled down. So, whilst we are, I guess I would term it that we're caring for him.
Yeah.
We're not carers full time. He is able to do a reasonable amount for himself, albeit we need to be with him.
Yes.
So I think, coming to the terms that the life that we thought our son was going to have is very different to the life that he's on is heartbreaking. The amount of friends that Harvey has that come and see him when this happened, he was 16, and I think it was quite scary for all of his close friends.
Yes.
And life moves on. We're 6 years on, they've all gone to uni, and he very much is on his own for a huge amount of time. And I actually think he's quite happy, ironically. I think it probably worries us and bothers us more than it maybe does him. The realization, Ali, that my business now has gone, I've lost my business completely. But that's okay. I think the irony is I think we as a family, although I wouldn't wish this on anybody, are perhaps looking at life in a better way now than we were before. And, I used to travel around the world all the time with my business, and I haven't done that since the day this happened. And actually, I don't miss it. And I kind of question why I was doing it anyway. So there's there's good things that have come out of it. Harvey is back playing football, which is just a miracle. He plays for Chelsea's cerebral palsy football team, and that's been very difficult for him to come to terms with. He played at a very high level for Reading, and now he's playing in a disability league. But at least he's doing what he loves. At least he still has his identity, albeit in a very different way. My other sons have got back really to their lives. Their lives are, my eldest son lives in Madrid and he lives a very normal life. My youngest son is at university, so he's still living in the house on and off. Life's become, I guess, as normal as you could expect in this unimaginable scenario.
And thank you for pointing out the positives that come from this as well, because although it's really important that we draw upon the difficulties and what that means for families, actually, as you say, it's not all negative, is it? Sometimes it does help you to perhaps reflect on some of the life choices that you may have been making previously.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, just touching on a few things there, I think, I certainly, when I look at my younger son, he was only 15 when this happened, and he lost his innocence, and you have to grow up extremely quickly when you're in this situation, and it's heartbreaking for us as parents. But when I look at his maturity now, it's extraordinary. I look at the maturity of my eldest son, and you wouldn't wish this on people, and but they are amazing young men that have had to grow up incredibly quickly. So there's positives there. I look at being part of Anchor Point, and working with you, Ali, and the rest of the team. It means a lot to me to help other families. Maybe it's therapy for me, I don't know, but I know that the power of it is huge. So, I've worked with quite a few families now that sadly have been thrown into this in the same way that we were. And between my wife and I, we've managed to help those families navigate through what is a very difficult environment. I never thought I'd be presenting at brain injury conferences, and actually I'm a subject matter expert, because I'm talking about the family experience. And my whole professional life, I've been in business, and I can honestly say I've never worked with such an amazing bunch of people as I have in this medical world, I guess, and the therapy world, and just incredible people that are so committed. The sadness, I think, for me overall is that nothing has changed. People leave rehabilitation centres daily, and perhaps don't have such a close-knit family as we do, because I know that's been key to Harvey's recovery to where he is today. And it saddens me to think that people are leaving those centres like we did, with no roadmap, with no support, having had amazing medical care. So this is not being disrespectful to the NHS. No. They've done amazing. But when you leave that environment, it really is down to the family. And that saddens me that our government and, there's nothing been put in place despite all the lobbying that we've all been doing and we continue to do. So, but no, life is good. For Harvey, he's been quite a little media mogul. The fact that he played football at a very high level, there still is a lot of interest in him and his story. He even ended up going up and spending the day with Gareth Southgate at St George's Park, which, is unimaginable. This would never have happened. So, and hearing the England manager tell Harvey he's an incredible young man, and, his resilience is incredible, is amazing for him and for us as a family. So there are a lot of positives. And I think, for Harvey now going forward, just like I'm involved in Anchor Point trying to help families, he wants to get into, I guess you could call it motivational speaking, but to go into schools and to football academies, helping young adults, first of all, don't make mistakes, don't make life choices that can, really change your life. But also to make people recognize and realize that, that when things are thrown at you that are not when they knock you off of the direction you were going in, there's always another direction, and you have to accept it and embrace it and do the best you can within it, rather than go in a very negative direction. So yeah, there's lots of positives, Ali. I mean, I if I could wind the clock back and this never happened, clearly I would, but I think as a family we're in probably as good a place as we could ever imagine, albeit we've had to navigate this journey ourselves, which has been the scariest thing.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I mean, you're right. What you've managed to make of it as a family is as positive as it can be, and it's amazing to hear Harvey doing so well. But actually, that journey could have been so much easier with better support in place for you guys as a family, and for him when he left hospital.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you, Trevor, so much for sharing your story with us today, and for giving us a really detailed overview of exactly how brain injury can rewrite the lives of all people involved, families as well as the individual after brain injury. Thank you too to our listeners at home. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to support further information videos around families about after brain injury, and look out for future podcasts. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks, Ali.